Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon.
Great suns, everyone, and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge only, Galactic Starcruiser Superfan podcast on the interwebs. I'm Galactic Starcruiser Superfan Martin, and with me, as always, are...
Superfan Christine.
And Superfan Drew.
We've got a really fun show today. Christine, can you tell us all about it?
Absolutely. We have a fabulous, fun new announcement regarding our May 3rd, 4th, and 5th voyage. We had one of our listeners send in some information regarding a new survey that Disney is putting out to recent passengers on the Halcyon. And then we're going to look ahead, 2023 for Galactic Starcruiser, and give you some of our thoughts.
So as many of our regular listeners know, we're going to be attending on May 3rd, 4th, and 5th of 2023 our third voyage. It's going to be our third voyage on the Halcyon. Can you believe this, guys?
The May the 4th be with you voyage.
It's very cool. So Sarah J. Mack and Dan Flores on Facebook, on their Facebook group, kind of set up this Starcruiser meetup group cruise for people who want to get together. And so there are a large number of folks who are going to be joining that cruise, including several of our listeners, which made us think of an idea, Martin.
Well, we have heard from so many of our listeners that are going to not only be able to be on that cruise with us, but also other listeners that are based in that area, in and around Disney World, some cast and crew members that listen to the show. And we thought, wouldn't it be a fun idea to kind of throw an informal Starcruiser Superfan meetup before the cruise? And Christine, can you tell us all about what you're looking forward to with this event?
Yeah, we're looking for an informal location at Disney Springs, bar, restaurant, outdoor location for as many people as we can fit into one square area.
It can be round. We're not shape gnostic.
Okay, so maybe round. But to do a dive into Starcruiser. So for any of you that are in the Florida area or are familiar with Disney Springs, if you have ideas on where would be a good place for all of us to meet up, please email us and let us know. But as we get closer to that time, we'll have more details to come, and we are so excited to meet so many of you in person.
Yeah, and we're thinking some place where we can get a cocktail or a drink, and if only there was a sublight lounge outside the ship, that would be even better.
We've had that discussion in past episodes. They need to have the departure terminal in Disney Springs.
That's right. So I'm excited what people have to suggest, and I'm even more excited to maybe have a beer or two with folks who might be going on the cruise or who are in the Orlando area. That should be fun.
Well, something interesting that happened this week is one of our listeners, Milton, received a survey after his voyage on Galactic Starcruiser, which was a recent voyage, and he shared this survey with Len Testa and Jim Hill of their podcast, Disney Dish. And there was some really interesting information in this survey. When we got off our second voyage, we received a survey, and we spoke about that briefly in the last previous episode. But there's some absolutely new questions going on that Disney's asking folks about, and it kind of gives an insight into what the Disney is thinking about the Galactic Starcruiser experience going forward. And Christine, Drew, what are your take on the questions asked in the survey?
Well, yeah, so basically these are typical survey questions. How much do you agree or disagree with the following statement? And I found them very fascinating. Why don't you talk about the first one, Christine?
So one of the questions that was asked is in regards to crowding at certain events, whether you strongly disagree or strongly agree or anywhere in between. And for anybody who's been on Galactic Starcruiser, you immediately had the picture in your head of possibly muster on the atrium or different story beats while you were engineering. Those seem to be the areas that have the most crowding as far as people are concerned. I mean, they're a lot of times big story moments. They involve several characters. And so people, whether it's part of their story or not, end up crowding into those areas just to see what's going on. Again, the FOMO concern, if I don't walk into that room or I'm not in the atrium, what am I missing? I don't know how much they can actually control the crowds whenever you're in that kind of area.
Right.
So whether you agree or disagree, I don't know how they would resolve it.
Well, it seems to me that Disney is hearing people complain that the experience is too crowded. During my cruise there were 300 people, was fully sold out. several of the events were too crowded. And so this is Disney trying to gauge their population. People have been, did you think it was too crowded? Because we've heard other people say it's crowded, too crowded. Because nobody ever says, I loved my cruise. There was barely anybody on it. It was super awesome.
Right.
So people are complaining about crowding,
Which is interesting because, like in the atrium, those are the events that are specifically designed to have every single passenger in attendance.
Well, but my guess is where Christine is talking about is, and again, don't put words in your mouth, but is you're talking about those experiences where suddenly a cast member, Lenka, breaks off, and suddenly there's 30 people right on top of Lenka all trying to have their moment that maybe we're partially responsible for telling people they need to try to get in their face. But
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely. And frankly, the one place that always comes to my mind where waiting is a problem or crowding is a problem is the data band consoles.
Yeah, when you're trying to get in consoles or in engineering, when you have to go key in something. Or,
to me, that's the one piece, and it seems to me like and again, I'm not an Imagineer, but it seems to me that that's a fixable problem.
Well, those are, but I'm very curious. I mean, again, if Disney hears that there's overwhelming response that people think this is too crowded, I don't have solutions, but it's interesting to see that Disney is hearing people complain and kind of address it. What was another question, Martin?
One of the other questions that's really interesting is how easy is the game to play?
Yeah, this is huge.
And really, this is going to depend wildly on your own, familiarity before you even get on the Starcruiser.
Sure.
Have you seen the videos? Have you listened to our show? These folks are going to be completely far ahead of the folks that have no experience with what Galactic Starcruiser is going aboard.
Well, think of like the example I said was my mom. My mother doesn't listen to the show, but if you do, Mom, hi, Mom. She wouldn't have the first foggiest idea what to do with the data pad.
None.
Right.
And then before the show, Martin, we dug into your memorabilia stash, and we found the piece of paper that was, to my knowledge, the only thing really that we saw from Disney that said use the Play Disney app because it's, as it says, an essential part of the experience. Was there something else?
Well, and that particular item, you don't get until you're on the Starcruiser in your room. And it's a big, text piece of paper. Guess what? For Disney, I need someone at Disney to hear me. Everyone is so excited when they're on Starcruiser and they get to go to their room. No one's going to stop and read instructions on anything.
Yeah.
On anything.
Probably true.
So truly, this is the type of paper that needs to be handed out to people when we're waiting outside. Before we even get to security, they should be handing this piece of paper out and making sure people kind of have it in their head as to what this is.
And it used to be handed out when they were giving out the data pads. When in the early days, for our first voyage,
true, for our first voyage,
they gave us they assigned us a data pad because it was still they didn't have the right version. So the data pads that they let us borrow came with this piece of paper. Besides that, was there any? Do you guys remember anywhere else where they talked about the data pad and how to get your missions?
No, and I don't recall if they had it on the website at any point. Like whenever you were initially setting up for your trip, if they had anything that said, make sure that you have the most recent Disney Play app downloaded or anything like that. I'm not sure that we ever got an email addressing it. I don't know.
Again, this to me is a perfect opportunity. They've got a captive audience outside waiting to get into security, and then once you're in the security room, they're already showing you a video. The example that keeps coming back to my head is the soaring over, it used to be soaring over California, now it's soaring around the world. You got that great Patrick Warburton video.
Oh, they have those videos on everything.
On everything.
Yeah.
The Star Tours has got the same thing. Buckle your seatbelts, don't smoke, no flash photography.
Sure.
But why they don't have something produced for Starcruiser while you're waiting there to show you an example of using the data pad, what a character sends you on a mission, here's what you do. I get it. Once you're on the ship, they don't want to break the immersion and, spell things out. But it's their responsibility, in my opinion, to spell those things out before you get on the shuttle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at the risk of saying it again, Disney's clearly hearing from people that the game, quote, is too hard for people to play. So this is their way to try to gauge. So it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when we were going through these questions just, informally before we record, I was like, a game's super easy to play. And then both of you had really good points that, our experience is not the average person's experience with this, whole thing. So I have to agree that this is not a super easy game to play.
Well, and keep in mind too, when Disney's asking how easy is the game to play, are they strictly talking about the data pad and that piece of the game? Because really it's a whole game. It's making sure that you're introducing yourself to the characters, making sure that you're, making your decisions online so that you know what path that you're going on. It's the entire game.
I didn't even think about it. Of course, when I thought the game, immediately I went to the data pad, but you're 100% right, Christine.
Yeah.
They're talking about the entire experience.
And this is a 45-second video that could summarize all of these points.
But again, if you want to go on and you don't want to be spoiled, that's whenever you get there and you don't know how to play the game. And by the time you figure out how to play the game...
It's day 2 and you wish you'd done something different.
Yeah. But to me, this is why a video, while you're waiting to get in...
What would that video say?
It would simply say, it would have an example of the datapad screen, you getting a mission, different choices available. It would have a video of one of the characters tapping. It could even be a character that's not actually on the Starcruiser. It's just an example. A character tapping on and saying, I need you to do this over there. And then having a mission tied to that. They could show people an example of what's going to happen on the ship.
Well, that talks about the datapad.
No,
you were well. Okay, in the example you were just giving, it was very datapad centric. So.
Well, no, I mean literally. I want to in this video. There's going to be a character tapping a passenger on his shoulder, saying, "I need you to do this," and that's going to tie into a later thing on the datapad.
Gotcha.
People need to see that there's cause and effect.
Yeah.
And the cause and effect is what's really, in my opinion. Again, we are not the average people going on this cruise, But a lot of people don't understand the causality of what happens now impacts what happens later.
Right.
Well, yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, even what we do on Batu, there's no real explanation as to why am I going from crate to crate to crate and scanning and scanning and scanning. And it's like, well, but you don't understand that there's something that you're going to find in one of those crates that's going to take you down either the same path that you're wanting to be on or potentially a completely different path, that because you found something in this crate, now you have a new opportunity. And
again, that to me is nothing that can't be spelled out in a pre-flight video.
Yeah, well, it goes back to we had a recent episode with Nick Tiersch where we talked about some of the onboarding challenges of this and other interactive experiences. So yeah, again, super interesting that Disney's seeing it.
Yep.
So another question that people talk about is, Milton was asked, my travel group and I got to do everything that was important during our stay. And something, again, that Jim and Len pointed out on the podcast from Milton's response, Milton strongly disagreed with this statement. Again, Disney's now hearing people aren't getting to do everything they want to do. Are they talking about some of the unique experiences? We don't know. What do you think that Disney's looking for here?
Well, this one's kind of tough because, in my opinion, the Galactic Starcruiser experience is designed specifically and intentionally so that you can't do everything that you want to do. Frank, I would be really disappointed if I walked off that ship feeling that there wasn't something else for me to do, because that's not how these things work. It wouldn't feel real at that point. At that point, it would really feel on rails.
Oh, I see. If you got off the ship and you found out, well, I did everything. I did 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and there was nothing else to do.
Yeah,
I see.
So to me, I think that it's kind of integral to the experience that people do what. Now, again, how people respond to that is going to vary from person to person.
Sure.
I mean, if someone doesn't get picked to be the hyperspace family that sends the Halcyon into hyperspace at the beginning, at muster, there's going to be people that wish that they were the hyperspace family, and I missed out, and that's 1 in 100 families that get that. But there's going to be people that see, their kid got to run off with Chewbacca. My kid didn't get to run off with Chewbacca. I get why that would be, a dissatisfier.
Yeah. So Disney, again, looking at this, they're concerned. Is our experience excluding people from things too much? Are people getting excluded more than we perhaps would like to, and that's causing some dissatisfaction. So interesting that Disney's looking at that.
Well, and I wonder too if, again, I go back to those people who are not wanting to be spoiled before they get on the ship, but like we did when we got back from our first voyage, we watched everything. We read everything. We wanted to make sure that we knew everything that happened. Well, I can't imagine if the FOMO you felt while you were on the ship, when you get off the ship and you start watching the videos and you're like,
I didn't get to do that.
I could have done that. Like, I saw people going that direction. Oh, I didn't know that's what they were going to go do.
Sure.
So I could see where that might be a a dissatisfier to somebody to say, well, if I had known that I could have done that, then I would have done that. That kind of thing.
And 100%, but the only real solution to that is for them to guide you by the hand from point A to point B to point C, which I think the cure is worse than the disease. Let's take in case in point. A personal dissatisfier for me is Chewbacca. I would love to hang out with Chewbacca. But of course, the moment Chewbacca appears, 50 kids swarm Chewbacca. And I'm not going to deny a kid a moment with Chewbacca, but it's impossible for an adult to get any time with Chewbacca. I'd love that to happen, but I understand why it doesn't.
Unless you're like Brian Shapiro and you bring him a big toothbrush.
Yes. And then he's your best friend for life.
Yes. But yeah, I am glad that Disney's listening, but I'm actually, these kind of questions kind of frighten me a little bit because I'm afraid that Disney's going to get the wrong message. And what I don't want Galactic Starcruiser to become, at its core, there is choices to be made, but in a big picture point of view, the experience is on rails. There's nothing that you can do to change the outcome, the major story outcome. It starts here, it ends here. How you progress through your adventure between those points is up to you. But what I don't want it to become is where they just lead you from this room to that room, to that room, to that room. And you have no agency, you have no choice in how your story progresses, which is really the only solution to people thinking I saw everything.
Well, yeah, and again, Disney asking these questions is just indications that they're hearing people complain, so they're wondering how big of a problem it is, so that's why they're asking these questions. Well, we don't have to go over all these, but let's go over the last one, because I think the last one's pretty interesting. The last one that was mentioned was, how actively did you participate in the story? And Len Testa, again, on the Disney Dish pod, and again, Len Testa on the Disney Dish podcast mentioned that his thought was maybe this was kind of a sorting question. So, for example, I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouths either, but I believe we would say we were very active in participating in the story.
That is an understatement.
So, and my guess is we would also say, how easy was the game? It was super easy. How much was crowding a problem? It was expected. So if you're super actively involved, maybe your concerns were on this side of the bell curve, if you will. Versus some people, like that couple we met in the Sublight Lounge on our second voyage, who kind of didn't know that there was this interactive thing around them and nearly completely missed out on it. They'd be on the other end of the bell curve,
Right.
Yeah. And again, there are moments that, I thought that there was too many people around to actively participate the way I wanted to.
Sure.
Which it goes back to the earlier crowding at certain events. So it is interesting that, all of these things kind of combine. But as far as actively participating, we're definitely at the top end of that scale.
Yeah. Sure. Well, it's good to hear that Disney's really looking at it, and they're trying to make the experiences as good as possible as they can for the most amount of people. A huge challenge with this, I know.
Yeah.
But it is good to see that Disney's thinking about it. And I'm kind of with you, Martin. It's a little scary, because we love the experience the way it is.
But as with so many Disney things, Drew, we had this piece of advice for years is always go to these Disney experiences and events and attractions early, so you can see them in their pristine Imagineering state before all sorts of other concerns and realities and budgets and such come into play. So it is kind of fascinating to see how these things evolve.
I hope each one of these comes with some sort of essay answer that's required. Like, you can't just say agree or disagree. You need to tell me why.
There were follow-up questions, and Milton did provide some of those again when he answered his question. So yes, there are opportunities during the surveys for you to fill out and give more information. But yeah,
I think I wrote a 400-page novel with my feedback email.
How many ways do I love Wraith? Let me count the ways.
1, 2.
So now that we're reaching the end of month 10.
Wow.
10 of Galactic Starcruiser, what are some of the things that we think that they're going to be looking to do going forward? Specifically in 2023, what do we think they're going to do?
You want us to get our crystal ball out.
Yes.
Luckily, I happen to have a crystal ball right here.
Dun-dun-dun.
Well, and keep in mind, folks, that this is not what we're advocating. We think we want to happen. This is what we think that could happen.
Yeah.
Well, Christine, what's one of the things you think is going to happen in the coming year on the Galactic Starcruiser experience?
Well, I can't imagine that they're not going to do the typical Disney discounts.
Sure.
I mean, it just makes sense that whether it's, seasonal to where it might be a time when they're not as busy, where they've now, got several months under their belt where they can say, April and May were always really slow, but, December's really, heavy, whatever, and just offer discounts in that regard. I can hope that if you're a frequent Starcruiser participant, maybe they offer you a discount too.
Oh, you're looking for a frequent flyer miles. Gotcha.
Do you hear me? Hello? But I mean, even, they started out with the Disney Vacation Club. They could go to Disney Visa members. They could go to, I mean, there's a myriad of ways that they could look at doing some kind of discount to encourage people to either come or come again.
I mean, there is a standard playbook for Disney discounts. And I think they're going to run that, exactly what Christine said. DVC comes first, Disney Visa comes second. They're going to absolutely open it up for discounts.
You're talking about tiers so that's their version of frequent flyers.
Yeah.
Sure, it's not frequent park goers, but it's Disney fans, people who are, they've got a tier that they're going to offer it to as they go.
100%. And again, cue the hate. The moment they offer any kind of discount, people are going to be, oh, the sky is falling. And that's just ridiculous. There's not a single resort out there that doesn't get discounts on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And the thing that kills me about the haters is, you're right. I think you're 100% right. There's been a discount plan from day one. They knew they were going to get the folks like us who are going to be the early adopters who are going to come in. They probably thought they were going to get that for, I don't know, they probably have God, I wish I could see the spreadsheet so bad. But they probably thought for the first 12 months, we're going to get the hardcore fans. And we're going to charge them the most for the experience because they're willing to pay it. I mean, it's economics, price sensitivity. This is all things you learn. When the haters start hating, I really want to point them at a few textbooks and go, guys, this is always the plan. Of course it's the plan.
It's like they say in Iron Man, this was always the plan.
So do you think they're going to be, what do you think a discount looks like? Do you think it's only during slow months? Do you think it's, you mentioned the tiers for Disney DVC members, Disney Visa card holders. What do those discounts look like?
In my opinion, they're going to do it as needed.
Sure.
I mean, I think they're going to absolutely start with the slower periods. Of course.
Sure.
That's the easy prey. But if they need to fill the cabins, they're going to do more aggressive. They're going to open it up to the busier times. I mean, they need those butts and seats, and they're going to get them one way or the other.
Are you talking about like cruise ship models? Like if they have seats available, if you come next week, I can give you $50 or $500 off. Or
I wouldn't be shocked.
Gotcha.
I really wouldn't be shocked. Now, again, it's kind of a different thing because most people that are at Disney World, this experience has to be planned out months in advance because of all the reservations and park reservations and dining reservations and whatnot.
The typical complexity of a Disney World vacation.
Of a Disney World vacation.
Yeah, right.
But do I expect them to start doing exactly what you just said? $500 off, $1,000 off, for a voyage next week? Absolutely.
Yeah, because they know you've made plans. So maybe they if they know a cruise is a little shy the week of March 15th, or I don't know, I'm making up a date. Maybe they say, well, we know we're having these people, so we're going to target marketing. Hey, have you thought about coming to Starcruiser for a couple days? And if you do, we'll give you the low price of a $500 discount or something.
Right.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I mean, I 100% foresee that happening in the calendar year.
Well, what else do you foresee happening in the calendar year, Martin?
Well, something that I think is going to happen, and again, how intently it happens and whatnot, but I think Disney's going to start looking at reducing operational costs.
Yeah, that's another standard playbook. And it's not criticizing Disney. That's what you do. You figure out what works. You have these surveys, and you say, okay, now let's turn the knobs a little bit and let's figure out what we're going to do. If
only 20% of the people are giving high ratings to lightsaber training, just as a out of the cuff example, they're gonna address that. So I do think that they're going to look for ways that they can still maximize the experience, but drop the operational costs. I think that's again standard Disney playbook, standard business playbook. I mean, anyone that was running this operation would look to do that. So what are some of the ways that again, we're not advocating that we want any of these things to happen,
right?
But what are ways that they could theoretically reduce operational cost without absolutely torching the experience?
Well, we know that some of the cruises that were less full recently, they went ahead and combined dinner services. That's one way they could lower operational costs. So I think combining those dinner services, I think that might be a little more common over the next year.
And frankly, I'm all for that idea because I don't want to be in a Gaia performance with a half, booked room.
Right.
I'd rather have it be one dinner service with more people cheering her on and giving the attention and enthusiasm and energy that performance deserves.
But I'm curious though, because we know that they have certain story beats that happen
Sure.
during dinner service. So if they've combined dinner services into one service, how do they manage those people when it comes to their bridge training or their lightsaber training or different things that happen in the story? So how do they go through the different beats of the story that they normally do during dinner service if everybody's in dinner service?
Well, just and no spoilers, anybody, don't worry about it. But some of the stories that they have, we know that they run during 2 dinner services. Now the story events just happen once.
Now we go back to crowding.
Good point. But again, thinking the ship is less crowded because they don't have a full contingent of 2 dinner services. Maybe crowding isn't as much of an issue at that point.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, what are some other ways they can lower operational costs?
I'm actually kind of curious about CSLs.
Sure.
Is we love them, we adore them, but with this price jump that they had, I mean they went from $99 to what, $399?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I wouldn't be shocked if they're still booking them through, because to me it really is critical for the experience.
You're thinking they're still selling them out.
I wouldn't be shocked if they are, simply because the results you get are so much better than you can get yourself. But if someone told me that no, they've got some empty spots, is this kind of their way of phasing that piece of it out?
It's just a speculation, perhaps, right? So if they're raising the costs in certain experiences, that's kind of a signal we need to hire less photographers, or when we're paying for those people, we need to, again, it's basic economics and price sensitivity. We're raising the cost because we're undervaluing it, so we need to get something that better cost value in. I'm babbling a lot, but you see where I'm going. So maybe they are going to cull it.
Yeah, I mean, $99 was ridiculously low. $399 is ridiculously high. But it's interesting that they made that big of a jump all at once. So that does kind of indicate that they're testing the water there.
It seems like it, yeah. What do you think, Christine?
Yeah, I mean, it seems so extreme, and yet I don't know that we've heard from anybody that said, yep, they upped the price, and so we decided not to do it. It's still an opportunity where, like Martin said, there's not really another way for you to easily get the kind of photos that everyone has gotten. You would really have to lug around your own, super cool camera, and nobody's going to bring a light kit with them.
The light kit is the key, yes.
So,
See, to me, I mean, I've never actually considered this before, but it's a 30-minute session that used to be 100, now it's 400. If they're going to raise the price to 400, could it be an hour session? But then again, you're losing out on an hour of activity on the ship, which is tough. But again, would that be an option to get a little bit more value there? I don't know.
Yeah.
What are some other operational costs that they might look at trimming? How about you, Christine?
I know that whenever you're in the atrium, there are 24-hour snacks, or at least it felt like there were 24-hour snacks. And I don't know that I saw anybody really empty a plate. Like, it's great that they have water available. I don't know that you necessarily need to have food available all the time. I know it's kind of a cruise type mentality to have food available for the passengers, throughout the day. But you're so active during that time that I think that's probably the last thing on somebody's mind.
Sure.
And I'm wondering how much of that on a daily basis just gets thrown out.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't remember, ever actually going to the snack bar at the atrium. Now, again, if someone's diabetic or something that they need, food on a semi-regular. Okay, I understand that, but those people typically, I think, would have snacks with them anyway from a day-to-day basis. But could that be a way to cut costs without, it wouldn't impact my enjoyment of the cruise? Again, if someone had a bunch of kids, would the kids miss the snacks? Maybe. But, I wouldn't be shocked if they're looking at that.
What if they cut the food in the sublight lounge?
That would be a dissatisfier. Now, what's crazy to me is that would be a dissatisfier if they lost the food in the sublight lounge. But something that I did not realize my first voyage, and it was absolutely blew my mind the second, is that the food in the sublight lounge is free.
Currently it is.
It's to me, and again, I almost hate saying these words out loud, but Disney should be charging for that. I hate saying those words out loud because I love it being free. But to me, if someone decided to charge for that, I'd still buy that food. It's great. It's sensational. You got to pay for the cocktail. I can't believe they don't make you pay for the snacks. And I'm thrilled that they don't. But I'm saying this like, God, are we hanging ourselves here?
Well, we're not clever enough to come up with ideas that they haven't already been thinking about. So,
that's the way There's no way. But to me, it's an incredible satisfier that food's included. Would I not order it if it cost money? No, I would not refuse to order it. I'd order it and pay for it.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, to me, that's a really good target.
I'm going to still make you squirm a little bit more with my next question.
Oh boy.
So again, I'm not spoiling anything for anybody, but there are certain characters that are beloved to many, that they shouldn't cut the characters, but those experiences aren't in the data pad. In other words, there's no reprogramming necessary. What happens if they cut some of those experiences for the guest?
Oh boy, well, I'm just going to go out and say the names here because I can tell where you're going with this. And again, we are not advocating this. We do not want this. But could Disney cut or cut back the Sandro and Wani storyline? That would break my heart. But could they? Oh boy, yeah.
They could, but then you have to go back and think, what about those people that don't want to get deeply involved in one of the other character storylines?
Right.
So to me, the characters of Wani and Sandro are really to entertain or to casually involve people that don't want to go headfirst into all the different characters.
Right.
It's an opportunity where if you have parents that have brought their kids, that the kids are off running and having a fabulous time, and the parents are thinking, I just want to sit here and calmly have my drink that I just got from Sunlight Lounge. And isn't it wonderful that these two characters are here and I can listen to how that story unfolds?
Oh yeah, and Sandro, as we've talked about a number of times on the show, is incredible at drawing people in and basically kind of setting the stage for the experience.
Yeah.
So in a way, Sandro is a little bit of an onboarding for people.
Yeah.
Maybe you're training wheels into learning character interactions.
Yeah.
And so if they didn't have as much of him available, sure, it would cut his salary, but they'd also lose something. So the question for Disney is, would they lose more than they would gain by keeping him? That's interesting.
And for me, Wani is such a signature piece of this experience.
Oh yeah, I mean they can't lose that.
They can't lose that. I mean, could they try to cut Wani back to only being there day one? If they cut back the storyline aspect of it, that would break my. I mean, but Wani is such an absolute grand slam. I mean, I'm going to argue until I die that they need more of that. Cutting Wani, and frankly, I mean, again, I have no idea what would be saved by cutting, that particular storyline. I mean, but to cut the Wani and Sandro thing would break my heart, and I don't think it would. You actually make the problems worse of crowding. Is another thing. Wani and Sandro, they do kind of, instead of everyone going down to engineering, the more avenues people have of going in different directions, the better the crowding problem, or the better the crowding situation is on the ship. So, boy, it hurts to even have it. It's funny. Drew's like smiling ear to ear, making us squirm with these questions. You diabolical, beautiful son of a bitch.
It's like I'm a LARP architect finding moments to get emotion out. Well, we talked about things that we think will happen. So I think discounts are definitely going to happen.
100%.
I do think lowering operational costs. I think that is going to happen. What are some other things that you think are going to happen in 2023?
Well, I do think they have to refresh the merchandise.
Oh yeah,
in some capacity. Sure. I mean, I do not believe that we're going to get the Kenner action figures that I want
I don't think so
desperately.
Either.
But I mean, like we've talked about, like the Gaia CD.
Right. Sure,
I think is an obvious thing. They've got to sell the Gaia CD. I mean, are we going to get? What are some other things that we think they are likely to do? I mean, I think that they're likely to start increasing the outfits that they sell. To me, that they're leaving so much money on the table by not giving people an easier way to cosplay on that ship.
Yeah, they've got 10 months of data on what sells and what doesn't sell. again, it's standard business operation. We saw that there was a special on the shields from the lightsaber training, where there was a period of time where they were giving the shields away with the purchase of a lightsaber. That tells me, as putting on my entrepreneurial cap, which by the way is green, when I put that cap on, that says to me, okay, we bought too many of these shields and we're not selling enough of them. Let's reduce our stock a little bit by giving those away for free with purchase of a lightsaber. It tells me they're kind of reshaping their retail mix.
100%. I mean, something else that they've got to figure out is the sizing. I am a somewhat chunky individual, and they never have my size in any of the high demand outfits. I would have bought 2 or 3 different outfits had they had my size.
Right.
It's always the first size to sell out.
It is, I still think that one of these. Well, we'll talk about this in what we want to have happen later. But I think that they're going to definitely refresh some of the outfits. The Gaia CD certainly.
Well, you mentioned the action figures, and yes, they can't make an action figure of. I don't see how they make a figure of Wraith or Sammy.
I do.
But what would it be? We've seen.
I've thought about this so crazy much. I think we're literally sitting in a gigantic room filled with decades of Kennerisms that we've collected. The answer to how do you make a Wraith action figure is you don't make it look like any of the actors. You just make a generic looking Wraith in the outfit that we all know.
So I don't think if 10-year-old Drew was on the ship and I saw somebody in a Wraith costume, but it wasn't my Wraith, I don't think I'd buy that. But what I would buy would Gaia. I'd buy Wani. I'd buy Captain Kevin, because those are fairly unique looks that they achieve through makeup and or appliances. So I can buy the Wani figure. The fact that they don't have a Wani figure
is insane.
I don't get it. I mean,
but how? And you're right that there's no perfect solution to the Sammy, the Lenka, the Wraith problem. But if they're going to sell a Captain Kevin, they're already selling an SK. But if they sell me a generic Saja,
yes, I think they could do that
100%. But
yes.
At that point, the disinclusion of Wraith Cole and Lenka Mock and Sammy becomes so intrusive.
Sure.
It becomes so obvious that where are these characters? And again, Sammy has had several different faces. Has had Wraith. We've had hippie Wraith. We've had the younger Wraith. We've had all sorts of different age ranges. So yeah, they can't do a different Wraith for every voyage as far as the merch. So really, the only solution in my mind that works is make it as generic as possible to get it out there with the rest of the figures.
So I'd be willing to bet Christine's paycheck easily that in the next year that they would be putting out a Gaia or a Wani or a Captain Kevin. I don't think they're going to put out Sammys or Wraiths. I get what you're saying, but now we're kind of bridging into what we'd like to see. So
all of it,
all the things.
So why don't we talk about that for a little bit? We've talked about things that we think are going to happen over the next year. What are some things that we would like to happen over the next year of the Starcruiser?
Oh, one thing that immediately comes to mind for me: offer a discount the instant you get off the ship.
You're outside, basically.
The minute you're outside,
yeah.
you've got 72. If you book a return cruise within 72 hours, 48 hours, whatever, you get 15-20% off.
Yeah, within a month.
Boom.
I mean, give a long, make it long.
A long tail.
Yeah, I don't know what it is on the Disney cruise, but again, as we've talked about before, I signed up for my second Disney cruise on the last night of my first Disney cruise because I had such a blast. I got 10% off. Yeah. And I don't know how long that lasted, but yes, I think they absolutely should do that.
It's absolutely crazy to me. So another thing that we kind of briefly touched on it a little earlier is a wider selection of costumes in the Chandrilla collection, and a variety of sizes.
Oh, I don't understand why they don't have more sizes. I get that they have to buy certain sizes. I get it, but they have 10 months of data that shows the variety of sizes. They must know that. If they stop, actually that's interesting. One curious thing that I don't know is I can tell what sells out really fast. So if the large size sells out really quickly, that's the data. Oh, I need to make sure I buy a certain number of large sizes. But when they don't sell certain things, how do they know they need to buy more of those? I don't know the signal, but this is Disney. They know retail.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, this is something that they have to know the answer to this.
Well, we all would have bought things when we were on board. Now, we were lucky. Patty got her training tunic within the 30-day after that it was restocked.
Right.
And again, maybe some of this is supply chain. It did just occur to me about that. But
Sure.
But Martin, I would absolutely like to see more outfits.
I want my sabak chips, damn it. It's been 2 trips we haven't got the sabak chips.
Which is great. I'm with you 100%. We did, by the way, see on Facebook that somebody got the sabak chips.
Yes.
We've seen them. So we know they exist, and by gosh, please let them have them in May. When we go in May, we're gonna have to get on as early as possible, and we'll just say, you know what? Just give us our room key. We know how to get in there. We're going to stop at the Chandrila collection.
You're giving away all of our secrets.
Right.
Quiet.
Exactly. Well, what other merchandise do you think we want to see, Christine?
A captain's hat in an adult size.
Yeah,
would be great.
that is
That would be
crazy.
great.
I mean,
How is anybody going to cosplay as the captain if you don't have the captain's hat in an adult size?
which I get why they don't have the full costume. They don't want people interfering with the cat, or else you literally would have someone cosplaying as Captain Kevin on the ship, which would be not a great thing.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean,
We'll have it be available online after the cruise.
that's
Perfect.
Again, that's the type of thing. The minute you get off the ship, they've got the stand open. That's where you sell, and frankly, I would have absolutely bought an adult-sized engineering jumpsuit, the Sammy uniform.
Yes.
I mean, they sell it in a child size, and again, I understand completely why they don't sell it on the ship. They don't want, people looking like Halcyon employees, Halcyon cast when you're on the ship. I get that, and if their fear is that people will come onto the ship later, you could easily have a rule.
And you can police it.
And you could absolutely easily police that rule that you cannot wear these things on the ship. Super easy to enforce that. It's a common sense rule. But to not sell that item is incredible to me. Yeah. I mean, we recently had on one of our Sublight Lounge episodes, we had one of our listeners, Elizabeth, wearing a child's size because they don't sell an adult size. Right. And it looked fantastic on her, but I can't fit into that darn kitty-sized engineering suit. But I want my Sammy outfit.
Well, and now that they have the store open the day that we leave, that's the opportunity to put those out. You can buy them the day that you're leaving the cruise.
I don't think that's the best idea. I really think that's something, if you don't want people wearing it on the ship, sell it outside.
That's isn't that what you're saying?
She's saying sell it at the Chandrila collection store on the last day.
I thought you were
selling.
Leaving. Oh, I see. I thought you were saying sell it on the outside store.
I still think that the danger of someone putting that thing on when they're on the ship, I think the better solution is sell it when you're off the ship.
And then the Gaia CD. Is there a reason they don't sell it?
Because they don't want my money.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, maybe there's some rights issues. Maybe when they wrote the music, they didn't write it and they didn't form the relationships with the songwriters. I don't know, but that's just money. That can be solved.
Right.
And again, if they had to release a Gaia-esque CD of slightly different, but in Gaia style, whatever, release a track of One Galaxy. The fact that I can't buy a licensed form of One Galaxy to me is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
We all would have paid for that.
I think 70 to 80% of the passengers would have bought that CD on the way out.
Absolutely.
Christine and I lived together, and we would have mandated that we each own our own CD.
I need one for my car. Yeah.
What else, from a merch perspective, I mean, we obviously they're going to refresh, T-shirts and whatnot, but is there anything else that they're missing? I mean, I really do like the mugs and the barware that they sell.
I want one of the trays that you eat off of.
Oh my gosh.
Sure.
Those things are awesome.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I'd need a set of plates that fit those trays as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Christine, that is an absolutely amazing idea. Like, we have thought about how do we steal the candle holders. I would love to have one of those candle holders without stealing it. And no, I haven't stolen one yet. If anyone has one, furiously scanning eBay. But yeah, the tray that they have at the the Crown of Corellia.
Yes.
I would absolutely love it if they sold that. I would buy 2 of those things.
Those are very
instantly.
commonly requested online too. I see that on Facebook, and I see that in the Reddit sub. Lots of people are asking for where they can get that stuff. Sure.
Wow, that's what a great
And
idea.
that I think you could easily sell through the Disney store after you get off, that 30-day window that you've got to buy stuff.
Yeah, and I think they could sell that on board too. I
Yeah.
don't see any
Yeah.
reason. I mean, if I can buy the bar glasses, why can't I buy the
Right.
plates and the you know what I mean?
I would jump. My gosh, every single time we're handed one of those trays, what's the one thing we all say? I wish we could buy that. That's a great idea. One item that I just don't see mentioned ever as far as a possible merch is I would really want to have, they sell the really fun model replica of the Halcyon.
Yeah.
$150, lights up, it's great. But what I want to buy, a 6-inch, a foot long. I want the transport.
Yeah.
I want the shuttle that goes from Chandrila to the Halcyon and the Halcyon to Batu. We've seen it in concept art. It's a really cool looking vehicle. I would love to have some version of that sold.
I would love to see the droid that talks to you in your room.
Oh,
Wow, D309.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
That as an
D309
action
action
figure
figure.
would be awesome.
Yeah, my gosh. I mean, that's a sensational idea.
Another thing that I'd like to see when we were in the captain's suite, when we got in our room, they had a small piece of fauna from
Yes.
Batu or another Chandrila maybe. They sell some of these things, not these things that I'm talking about, but they sell mini Sarlaccs at Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
So maybe if they had some of those pieces of fauna or exotic creatures or whatnot, that a stuffed Garlac. I just made up a Garlac because I said Sarlacc earlier. You know what I mean? Something that
Yes.
exotic that's clearly something spacey, much like they sell down on Batu, but they're selling, that kind of stuff up on the planet. I'd love to see some stuffed animals or toys or etc.
Come on, Etsy, let's get on this problem. We have money. We want stuff.
Well, we've got lots of ideas about merchandise. What other things would we like to see aboard the Halcyon in the coming year?
Honestly, I would love to see another Wani-esque character. I know that adds cost rather than removes it, but to me, Wani is such a dynamite character. Let's extend this to a different species. They've done Rhodian. They've perfected it. Let's see something else.
What would you think would be a good species for them to utilize?
Again, I've gone on it, several times during different episodes of the show. A Trandoshan, the bounty hunter Bosk, to me is really, really iconic for Star Wars. And to me, if they can pull off Wani, a Trandoshan seems like it should be doable.
Yeah, and just like they have, Sandro and Wani have moments together. And Wani, of course, is talking in Huttese, not basic, so we don't understand what Wani says, but we don't need to because we can just fill in our own conversation, which is great. Would it be the same thing with the Trandoshan?
And, throughout different media, like, the Clone Wars and Rebels, we've seen Trandoshans in different capacities. It's not just a Bosk.
Well, do they speak another language? Is what I'm asking.
They actually speak English.
Oh, they speak
Bacus. They can speak Basic.
Okay.
So whether they would have to do that or not, I could see why they would not want it to. Because one of the magic things about Wani is when you're talking with Wani, her responses are whatever you want them to be.
We had a fabulous conversation about tax policy, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, fantastic. So you could talk to this character, and rather than it being specific, let your mind go crazy. What is this character saying to me?
Well, where I was going with this is Wani has experiences with Gaia and Sandro. What if that Trandoshan had some not datapad experiences with Croy? Or they were a former antagonist to Lenka, that Lenka fought this Trandoshan or had a run-in with them on another planet, and they can hint at that and have that be part of their story that, again, doesn't take programming, which is a real cost. But I get that the Trandoshan would be a cost for the costume, but that's another way to add story elements and not make them have to program a whole bunch of interactions in the app.
Well, something that I just thought about is like, how could they introduce another one of these characters without forcing modifications to the app? And something that kind of came to my mind is on excursion day, you get dropped off at this terminal, for lack of a better word, on Batu.
Right.
And you come back to this terminal and take it back up to the ship. a Trandoshan, character could be in the terminal as like a representative of CSL there. Basically, you the only place you can see this character is getting on and off the shuttle. Wouldn't have to change a single storyline. Still get a really, really cool character moment. Something exclusive for the Starcruiser folks.
You'd have to hide him from the other people going to Batu because they'd be like, I want to talk to that guy.
But see, that's almost... They need ways to drive interest in Starcruiser on Batu. We've talked about in a past episode how they don't have a CSL travel agency type booth outside the Starcruiser terminal in Batu is astounding to me. I mean, truly, why don't they have just screens showing what CSL is, what the Halcyon is, all in universe? Book a cruise aboard the Halcyon. You're seeing people walking in and out of this mystical portal. There could be this really cool creature in there that you can't get to. Drive interest.
Sure.
I mean, I'd love to see that. Something else that I would personally like to see, I understand completely why the pilot character in the shuttle down to Batu got cut. There was supposed to be a pilot character, a Rex type pilot character. And it got cut. Obvious budgetary reasons. To me, the shuttle experience is okay, it's fine. But would I really like to see a pilot character? Yeah, I would.
Oh, so you'd like to? So that's something you'd like to see in the coming year?
I would like to see in the coming year. Let's enhance that to the way it was originally envisioned. We get the voiceover now. Let's see the pilot. That would be a really big plus up for that one. There's this one little piece that, again, it's okay. The voyage piece of it's okay. I get what they're trying to do, and they accomplished it pretty well. But for everything else being so stand out in the entire experience, to have this one thing that just it feels like a budget cut to me, I'd like to see that addressed.
Well, one thing I'd like to see is, how when you're in Oga's Cantina, you're hearing Rex play the mix of the hits down on Batu, the latest and greatest in Black Spire Outpost. That ambient music that plays while you're in the cantina is super fun. I'd like to see some music in the atrium, something that sounds spacey, something that sounds like they did a fabulous job with all of Gaia's songs. So it seems that they could probably create some sort of another example of the ambient music I'm talking about is at Shanghai Disneyland. In Tomorrowland, where they have the Tron experience and the other stuff in Shanghai Disneyland, as you're walking from land to land, there's a soundtrack for each land. This is pretty common at some of the parks. Well, the soundtrack that's playing at Shanghai Disneyland, first of all, it's flippin' incredible. It's by BT, an artist who does a lot of electronic dance music and electronic music. He wrote an hour-long mix of music that plays just ambient. I'd love to have something spacey like that playing in the atrium, maybe at a low volume that's just, in the background. That would be, I think that would be something that would be really cool in the atrium.
That would be cool.
Or even in Sublight Lounge. Let's hear some ambient music. And by the way, it could be that they're already doing this and we're just not aware of it. But I'd like to be a little more aware of it. And then that's something else that they could sell me later on. I mean, one of the things that, again, people on Facebook and Reddit are constantly asking for is they're asking for the candles. You've seen the theme park candles where you want to see what it smells like in E.T.'s Adventure at Universal Studios or the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They have those candles that kind of replicate the smells. People are talking about, I want to light a candle in my house and close my eyes and just for a minute imagine that I'm sitting in the atrium again. The music would help with that.
Well, the candle that we get, or that you get when you're staying in one of the suites, we haven't lit ours because not going to do that.
We did ours.
Okay.
And it's nice, but it's if it's the atrium, it's too subtle.
Yeah. Okay. And I was curious about that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a spoilery wish. Can we talk spoilers or no?
Well, yeah. So we're getting close to the end. So why don't we go ahead and talk spoilers for the rest of the episode for folks who don't like spoilers? You'll want to tune out.
And it's a spoiler-ish, but spoilerish enough. I think because of the interaction between Batu and the Halcyon, that I think they need to have a live-action Hondo.
100%.
Yeah, they really
I mean,
do.
even if Hondo just popped, that he was someone that was in the park, and then he popped onto the ship for a short period of time to, got the coaxium or wanted to
Right,
make sure the
right,
coaxium
right.
was here or whatever. Whatever, his piece of the story, he doesn't have to be there both days. He doesn't have to be there for an extended period of time. Damn it, I want a live action Hondo.
And they've got one. I mean, there's video right now where you can see it. I don't know if it was the opening of Galaxy's Edge, but they had a Hondo that gave a several minute soliloquy, and it's amazing. Live action, no cuts. It sounded just like Jim Cummings. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's a great idea because he could easily fit in on day 2,
Right.
maybe from 4 to 5. He's
Right.
just there for a little bit just to see how things going.
Yep.
Or Hondo's the perfect character to have in the Starcruiser terminal there. So it makes
possibly.
perfect sense why Hondo would be there.
Well, I get it, but again, we just saw him at Smuggler's Run, in theory, if we're in the park, and if the guests see him in the background, Hondo is a flippin' draw. People are gonna beat across the barriers to go see Hondo. So I see why they don't have him in the park, but
I think I would beat down any barrier. I would pay whatever I had to pay. But to get Hondo on that ship, Christine, that is a sincere. I mean, more than any other character, Hondo's the one I want to see in live action.
Sure. I think that's a great idea.
And I do think it makes sense to, when everybody is supposed to be back on the ship at 4 o'clock, to have Hondo come back on the ship at 4 o'clock. And like I said, just for a short period of time, just enough to kind of sneak through some of the corridors, check on Chewbacca, check on Wraith, make sure that, everything happened the way it was supposed to. I don't know. I just think that would be awesome.
Well, what's kind of interesting is there is that little story beat that some random group has to take the coaxium from Batu to the Halcyon. We got picked that one time to do that. Why couldn't they actually have Hondo do that? That would get him on the ship, and again, be there for half an hour.
When you say have Hondo do that, what do you mean?
Have Hondo, instead of giving us or someone the crate of coaxium to take back to the Halcyon, have Hondo get on the shuttle to go on the Halcyon and take the coaxium up himself.
Oh, I see. So one shuttle member gets
Hondo.
Lucky gets Hondo taking them up. Oh, and then that's how Hondo gets on the ship.
That's how Hondo gets on the ship.
I'm with you. That would be pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it would be absolutely. I'm going to cross universes. That's fracking amazing for all of our Battlestar Galactica fans out there. Yeah. So let's actually kind of do one more each. Let's take Trandoshan, the boss, species off. Let's take Hondo out. We've talked about those two, how we think they're accomplishable and we think they'd be awesome. What's some other species or droid or something that we'd like to see on that ship? I mean, I would love to see an IG droid.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
In some capacity.
Sure.
And again, does it have to be fully ambulatory? No, but I want to see one in some capacity. I think an IG droid would blow my mind. What's something else that they could put in front? Whether it's possible or not, what would blow your mind to see? The way that you were blown when you saw Wani for the first time.
Well, mine is easy. I don't even need to be blown away by a Wani. I'd love to be blown away by a Wani-like character, but I'd love to see a bounty hunter of some kind. It doesn't even have to be an IG-88. It could be, all the characters by heart. Who's the one in Empire who's all bandaged up?
Dengar, yeah.
Give me somebody who looks like Dengar, who comes up, who's just, who same thing. He comes. I love your idea of going on the shuttle. That's brilliant. He comes up on the shuttle with you, and when he goes up to the experience, and he or she is looking around, and they maybe run into Croy, they have some banter or something there, and then they head back down to that'd be amazing.
Yeah, boy, to see about. So what, Christine? Removing Hondo from the equation, because that's obviously what would be something that would absolutely blow your mind.
I'm trying to think. Are there any aliens or droids that are specific to the First Order?
Well, does it have to be a droid, Christine? Can it just be another Imperial officer who comes on board to do an inspection? Maybe it's a lower grade junior ranking member of the First Order?
Yes, but then again, you're just involving another human into the already human cast.
So would it be interesting to see like a different type of, like a Death Trooper? We haven't seen a Death Trooper in one of the parks.
What's the in-story reason for it?
Who knows? Yeah, because again, Death Troopers at this point would have morphed into something different. But to see a First Order flavor of a Death Trooper. I mean, wouldn't it be kind of cool? I mean, they got this character, Captain Cardinal, that they have, they've actually made an action figure of him already for Galaxy's Edge. Let's kind of get a trooper character that's exclusive to Starcruiser. I mean, there's...
So a stormtrooper comes up. Maybe he doesn't have the same canned responses that the current stormtroopers have. Maybe he's actually a
character,
somebody, and he's got a modulated voice. So when he talks, it comes through, and it's still. But he's talking Phasma style,
and something visibly distinct. I would love to, if they could come up with some different flavor. Because boy, that's kind of interesting. Now that you mention this, is like a Death Troopers as we saw them in Rogue One, and we saw them in The Mandalorian. They won't have been unchanged in the years between that and Galactic Starcruiser, but you can't tell me that the First Order doesn't have some flavor of a Death Trooper. What does that look like? Show that to me. Put some exclusive kind of trooper on that ship. I think that would get some oohs and ahs. That there's only one place you can see it, and that's Starcruiser.
Yeah.
And there's another action figure they could sell.
You better believe it.
Well, this has been a great conversation talking about both what we think is going to happen in the next year and what we hope is going to happen in the next year. We would love to hear from our listeners. You guys must have been listening to this episode saying, Martin, you're crazy. Christine, why didn't you think of this? And Drew, would you just stop talking? Send us your email. What do you guys think is going to happen in the next year? What do you want to see happen on Galactic Starcruiser? We'd love to talk about these in future episodes. And if people wanted to get in touch with us, Christine, how would they do so?
You can always email us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com. And you can find us on Instagram at heroesofthehalcyon, on Twitter at halcyon_heroes, or on Hive Social at Halcyon Heroes.
Well, it is always fun to shoot the poodoo with all the Starcruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's always our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast. Tabuite!